now time for our Sheriff Sit-Down. It's brought to you by our Community Credit Union, Undersheriff Travis Adams in studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Got some things to talk about with you today. You are the Undersheriff of the county, and so you deal with a lot of the day-to-day work here as well. Let's start with a couple of officer-involved shootings that aren't directly involved with the sheriff's office, but the sheriff's office has been brought in to work in an investigative process. How does that work, and is there a certain pecking order, if you will, of agencies? How would the sheriff's office get picked to do an outside investigation or something like that?
Yeah, so the Sheriff's Office is part of Homeland Security Region 3,
Okay.
and there's 5 counties in that region. And so we partner with our 5 counties on a whole bunch of different things. And one of those things that we partner on is the SIT team, which is the Critical Incident Investigative Team. And so that is a group of detectives that are provided by all of the counties, and they all come together when there's an investigation for a critical incident, such as an officer-involved shooting or a death in a jail, those kind of things. And essentially each agency takes turns being the primary investigative agency. So they'll take the lead on an investigation, and then the other agencies will supply detectives to help us when we're the lead agency.
So if it's an officer-involved shooting, explain to me then, do you have outside organizations at what level do these outside organizations come in? Because I feel like in not day-to-day police work and law enforcement, there are times when firearms have to be used. Is there a certain threshold that brings in an outside agency when it comes to these types of things, or?
Yeah, so they have a manual that they put together that kind of outlines that. But in general, if it's a critical incident of high liability and there's could be some sort of conflict of interest with the agency doing the investigation. So an officer-involved shooting would be a good example. Just here in the last week, both Thurston County and Grays Harbor County Sheriff's Office had officer-involved shootings. And so that would activate the 5 county regional team to come in and conduct the investigation. And that investigation would be led by one of the other law enforcement agencies, and they would not have any detectives involved from that agency in the investigation. So if Thurston County had a shooting, one of the other 4 agencies would take the lead, and then Thurston County would only have people serving as a liaison to help facilitate things getting done within the county, but not actually be part of the investigation.
And so when it comes to those investigations, your detective teams and things like that, they'll bring the parties involved and interview them, and it would just kind of be like any other sort of case that you're working on? You
bet. They conduct the entire investigation, everything from processing the scene to collecting evidence to doing the interviews and criminal investigation and going through that entire process. Yes.
Do any of these shootings have body cams involved? I know some agencies have them, some use them, some don't.
Yeah, so some agencies have body cameras, some agencies have no body cameras, but they have vehicle cams, any combination of those.
Sure.
And so if that is part of the process, then all of that is considered to be evidence in the case, and they will collect that. Sometimes they have video, but they're outside of the car's video range, but they still have the audio from that, so they will use the audio as part of that evidence. And
when it comes to those types of cases where there is outside video, and now I'm thinking of security cameras at gas stations and things like that, that has to go through a whole request process through those organizations, or is there do you find that those types of businesses are more compliant with law enforcement requests to get video to check in on these things?
Yes, the vast majority of the folks out there want to assist in any way that they can, and certainly there's more and more cameras at people's houses nowadays, on their fence lines and at businesses and all over the place. So any good investigation, even if it's out in the country, would involve talking to all the neighbors and finding out if they have cameras nowadays, because that's so common.
Yeah, the resolution's gotten so good too. You can really, they're not the blurry blurry ones from 10 years ago. I mean, they're getting really
Absolutely, and a lot of cases now are made looking at neighbors' cameras and seeing what vehicles are coming in and out of the area and being able to correlate that time with crimes.
Wow.
And things.
Wow. Let's move now to some of we got some graduations upcoming, and we've got some movement within the sheriff's office, and the West Point model for leadership training is something that you guys take part of. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then some of the things that's happening in the sheriff's office.
Sure. So we just finished up with our most recent Gold class. So Gold stands for Guardian Officer Leadership Development. It was a class that we adopted and adapted from the leadership training that they do at West Point. And so that's the foundation of the West Point model that they use over there, and it got adapted for law enforcement, and then we have all the material that was adapted from that West Point model. And about 4 years ago, the sheriffs in our region all decided that they wanted to have the best trained leadership in law enforcement in Washington State, and they agreed to all come together and put on this class that we do twice a year. And it's an 80-hour class. We do 2 full weeks of leadership training, which is a combination of a lot of academic leadership theory combined with a little bit of the sauce of personal flair when it comes to leadership and putting all that together. And we've so far trained, I believe, over 120 people in our region in the last 8 classes that we've put on.
How long has it been since you've come back from the FBI Training Academy now? Has it been a year?
Nope, not yet. I came back in September of last year.
So just a little bit short of a year. How has that continued to help you? And do you have any recent examples of how you've been able to connect with folks that you've been in the class with to use services or pass along service help?
Yeah, absolutely. The technology is fantastic nowadays because we're all connected on WhatsApp, and so we're communicating almost daily, pretty much still, even now. But yeah, certainly we have classmates that are reaching out all the time. As a matter of fact, right now, Connecticut is in the process of looking at legalizing marijuana.
Okay.
And so in Connecticut, they put together a group of law enforcement professionals across the state to look at how law enforcement is going to deal with new legalization over there. So one of those panel members was a class member of mine at 273 over at the academy, and so he's reached out to me, and I'm making connections here in the state to talk about what we've seen, some of the trends, things to do, things not to do, and
interesting.
That kind of thing. So yes, we reach out all the time.
Those are probably lifelong connections that you have now moving forward too.
Oh, without question. Yep.
That's
great friends and great connections all across the country.
It's a real feather in the cap for the Sheriff's Office of Mason County to have folks go through that FBI Training Academy. And you were out there for what, 6 months?
No, 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Very cool.
Yeah, just yesterday, I would point out, I was seeing on WhatsApp that one of the folks here that was in our class had a investigation that was going on in Saudi Arabia, and they were able to reach out to one of the classmates that I had from Saudi Arabia and do an investigative connection from the other side of the world. And so you see that pretty regular through the National Academy.
That's amazing how globally, but you're still so localized. Do you have something else?
Yeah, just real quick. I don't know if it's quick or not, but we covered a story on our website about the accidents involving potential marijuana usage and stuff, and kind of seeing an uptick in that, and a lot of states are finding that as well. But is that a day-to-day challenge for law enforcement, because it is hard to gauge kind of intoxication through marijuana as opposed to alcohol, where it's easier to
with
do
the
maybe a
breathalyzer, you
and
can tell
things like
pretty
that?
much.
I mean, is that...
Some folks on the website were making points that they could have smoked it or ingested it a few days prior than to driving, and it may not impact them, but it may show up with that 5 milliliters per nanogram. Is there any upcoming technologies to get a better reads on those? Or?
I am going to totally plead my ignorance here and tell you that I don't really know the answer to that. I don't do the day-to-day investigations on that, and quite frankly, the legalization of marijuana stuff came in after I moved up into administration, so I don't do the DUIs on the road. Probably State Patrol have much better answers on that than I do.
Sure.
And that's kind of part of part of what I was talking about with the reaching out from the National Academy folks. He's reaching out to me, but I don't really know. So I'm hoping to meet with one of the State Patrol guys in the next couple of days to get all those answers. And then, next week I'll be all educated up from the State Patrol guys.
Sure. And we will make sure we get you back and ask you those questions. Undersheriff Adams, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today. Sheriff Sit Down is brought to you this week and every week by the good friends at Our Community Credit Union.